We're there. Just cover my grey hairs up. Anyway, can't really see that grey bit there, can you? Just work on another book, and I want to tell you a little story. A lot of people are aware. A lot of people know who Paul Sykes is because of the story. Did he really swim with sharks? I'll tell you the truth behind it. Right, the story was that Paul Sykes was released in the back end of December '84, and he was back in prison May 1985. In that time, he went along a lot of places like the Ivory Coast. You've heard it all before. Singapore, all this thing. Now, the Straits of Johor, right? People think it's completely ludicrous and hard to believe. Um, Basically, Paul was in a hotel, and he ran up a massive debt of £16,000. So he made a run for it. Had no money at all. So he was basically in Singapore and wanted to get across the river to Malaysia. Now, people think it's like absolute miles in a complete ludicrous tall story, but the actual fact is, right, I've done a bit of research on that. And the Straits of Johor, right, it's just over half a mile for the distance, zero point 0.6 of a mile. You know, the Straits of Johor, none of the locals go paddling and all that. But yeah, and the story was, right, I've spoken to a lot of people who Paul's told this story to. Obviously, I spoke to, like, Paul Jr., I spoke to one of his carers, and the story behind that was, as he was leaving Singapore to jump in the river, he was being chased by the authorities, and he thought he was being shot at. And he turned around and he looked, and it was these small fish, like baby sharks. They weren't small fish; they were like sharks, like 3-4 foot. And Paul, in his own wisdom, how he tells the story was, I just turned round and I started punching. I punched 5 or 6, and they all swam off. So, do you know what? I think from my research, that story is very, very true. He did tell it was a guy who was looking after him in his last days. He said to me, he said, when he got on the other side, which was Malaysia, or how you pronounce it, he said I was like the Jolly Green Giant. And everyone's seen the story of the pumps around his neck, but that's the measure of that story. You know, he's not going out saying he knocked out 20-foot great white. There were kind of small sharks. That's what he said, and I believe that to be very, very true. So yeah, sorry, I'm typing, which is probably my phone's all over. I'm normally at my kitchen table, but that's just a little insight to, was the story real? Because a lot of people think, oh, shut up, you Billy bullshitter. I spoke to a lot of people, and over the years, Paul told them that same story all the time. So and you know, and all this story about him being in the Ivory Coast and living out the outback, all these kind of stuff. That was all in that time, a couple of months period, um, which obviously Janet Sellers give him some money to pack him off, and that was in that time period, and I think it was very, very true, and it'll be interesting to see how the film portrays that line. But yeah, I for me, I'm one who completely buys it.